Hello, everyone. Hope you can all hear me and also see my screen. Welcome to this webinar on Zoho People. So, how are you all doing? I hope you're all keeping safe. So, we are at Zoho People, we are back with our expert webinars. So, as you all know, we've been running a couple of expert series webinars for the past months to help people navigate and thrive in during times of crisis like this. And today we have an interesting topic, an amazing speaker with us, John Ingham, and he'll be sharing his thoughts on how to strategically re engineer your ideas, your strategies revolving around HR through and not just that, even after COVID. So let me quickly introduce John. So, John is a HR strategy consultant. He's also a learning facilitator in his new digital strategic HR academy. He focuses on realigning people management with the future of work. And he's also featured the same in his recent book, The Social Organization. He's also widely recognized as an influencer in human resources. So, undoubtedly, the best person to impart knowledge on the topic today, strategic restructuring of HR through and post COVID. So, John, it's wonderful having you amidst us today. Thank you for taking your time and being with us. And dear attendees, before I give it over to John, let me quickly introduce the agenda for the day. So I'll hand it over to John and he'll discuss his ideas, his thoughts on strategic reengineering of HR through and post COVID. And I'll be highlighting some handpicked features of Zoho People that can help you with the same. And at the end of the webinar, we'll be available to take your questions for an exclusive 10 minutes. So, any questions you have on the topic that we are discussing today or on Zoho People, please use the question space that you see on your left side panel to send it over to us. So we'll be engaging you in the chat space. So you can ask your questions now or you can reserve them for the end of the webinar. And also please note that you're all on mute now. So let me hand it over to John. Okay, John, over to you now. Good luck.
Thank you. Wonderful. So, well, thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. I think perhaps the only thing to add, so I'm based in the UK. I was working globally. I suppose I still am. But we're in the UK, we're back in lockdown for the second time now. So working globally from my front sitting room. Looking out onto a fairly nice day. It's getting a little bit cold here now, but we've got a little bit of blue sky, which is always nice here. I've seen a couple of people just commenting on where you are. One of you from Papua New Guinea that I visited, maybe, don't know, 30 years ago. Wonderful place. Would love to go back. If anybody else would like to let me know where you are, be great to just know a little bit about you. So we're talking. Italy, also a wonderful place. Although I think even more COVID stricken than we are in the UK at the moment, from what I hear. And of course, COVID is the background to everything that we're talking about these days, and everything that we're doing, mostly. And I just think it's been such an interesting time. Not pleasant necessarily, but definitely interesting. And I suppose my key insight, I don't know if it's an insight, this isn't going to be new for anybody, but it has been interesting, I think, that all of the things that I've been talking about in sessions like this for the last sort of 10 years or so are still the same sort of things I'm talking about today. So COVID for me hasn't necessarily changed anything completely, but it's definitely accelerated the journey that many organizations are on to things like use of digital technologies, working remotely, flexible working, putting people first, all of these sort of things that we've been talking about and progressing towards, and suddenly we've sort of jumped towards that. So it's still the same journey, but much faster towards that. So absolutely, my recent book was published, sort of 3 years ago now. Some of the things I'm going to be talking about today date back to that. And I think they're still relevant, and even more relevant because of the situation that we're now working within. So the first thing I just wanted to highlight is this thing about putting people first, which, well, chief executives, have been going around being accused of sort of talking rather cynically by saying people are our most important asset for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. And then obviously not always acting in the way that supports that ideal. There's been a lot of talking the talk, not necessarily walking the walk. And I agree. This was an article right at the beginning of the pandemic from Josh Bersin, talking about, this clearly is now the time that organizations are putting their people first and understanding that if they do that, business results will follow. I do think, again, we've been moving towards that position for quite some time, but clearly things have accelerated very much towards it more recently. Not all organizations, but I think in the main, we now have a basis for a much more people-focused way of doing business than we've ever had before. And I think, I am so impressed with what HR's done. And I have been an HR director previously. I spent 4 years as an HRD, although most of my career has been in consulting. But, this has been such a challenge to manage. And again, there's been sort of varied levels of performance, but in the main, well done HR. We've really stepped up to the mark and achieved a huge amount over the last few months. But I do think it's been mainly a fairly reactive response to an urgent situation. And I think, there's been a very clear need to put people first, to respond to the pandemic, to do some fairly urgent things, and I do think we've achieved that well. So I am keen to make this session as interactive as possible, and like many other people, I've spent the last 6 months on systems like Zoho Meeting, Zoom, etc. And I always feel, I should be an expert in using these systems now. And I don't know about you, I'm still not. But I am going to attempt to keep an eye on the chat, the questions, the various opportunities to engage with you in the system. And to start with, we do have, I've got a couple of quick polls. And the first one I wanted to ask about is here, which you should be able to see and select your responses. And I'm hoping this has been set up that you can tick as many of these as apply. And I'm presuming that for many of you, you're going to be able to see, you're going to be able to respond, say, yes, actually, we've done quite a lot of this, because these are the sort of actions that certainly the companies, the clients that I've been talking to have been undertaking. If there are other things, please share in the chat. It'd be great to see a little bit more about the main actions you've been taking. Wonderful. Well, actually, okay, so I'm going to show everybody the results. I'm hoping that doesn't stop you responding. It may do, but anyway, we've got a little bit of a sense of where people are at. So not a huge investment going into sort of putting people first. which I find a little bit surprising. But I'm going to convince you that even if you haven't so far, this is definitely the time to start. Nobody suggesting you've been prioritizing frontline workers, which again, I'd suggest maybe we need to put more focus on. I think over the last couple of decades, well, really since Peter Drucker started talking about this move from production work to knowledge work and the rise of the knowledge worker, so much focus has been on our office workers, our managers, our leaders, the people who have got us through the pandemic are the people at the front line, out with customers, sometimes exposing themselves to to health complications or worse. They've been the heroes over the last 6 months. So I do think we need, at the very least, to recognise the prime role of our frontline workers. Increasing focus on well-being, remote working, absolutely, that I was talking about. Nobody suggesting increasing the status of HR. Again, I find that a slight surprise. Because in the main, as I was saying, I do think we've managed the pandemic appropriately. And, in many organizations, our business leaders are talking about, HR, coming to the fore. I can't remember who this comes from, but a couple of people have been talking about going back to the last major crisis, the global financial crisis, that really catapulted finance even further to the core, the front of their organizations. And in many organizations, this crisis has catapulted HR towards the leadership of their organizations. And that's certainly where I think we need to be. And thank you for everyone who's responded to that. And I'm pleased that some of you say that COVID has made HR more strategic. I'm actually going to argue the reverse for that one. Well, every organization is different. So, I'm not arguing about what you've done in your own organization. But in terms of the HR profession as a whole, again, I think so far there's been a very effective but a fairly reactive response to COVID. Oh, sorry. Yes, we hadn't set the poll up correctly. Well, anyway, I think it was, hopefully you've selected the response that was most meaningful for you. Right, on this slide, and this perhaps isn't my finest piece of graphic design, but hopefully it will illustrate the point that I want to make, what I think is happening in organizations, which is, we've all businesses have been doing, following their strategic plans, doing their own thing, creating competitive advantage for their own businesses, or trying to transform themselves as effectively as possible. And then, COVID happened, and there's been this sort of gelling around, this sort of major response around remote working, well-being in some organizations, those sort of things. I think we're at the point of the question mark at the moment. Where do we go next? Which is why, the title for this session is around responding strategically through and beyond COVID. We've got to where we are. We've done it well in a reactive way, but to progress further, to capture the opportunities which now exist, because any crisis provides challenges, and the reverse side of those challenges are opportunities. So how do we seize the opportunity? How do we move forward and hopefully still focus on our people and continue to create an environment that people are, if we're going to continue with remote working, which I think most organizations will to some extent, how do we do that in a way which is valued by individuals, which is seen as an opportunity for them to work flexibly rather than, creating a less positive environment than they used to have when we were back in the office. So how do we move forward in a way which increases the employee experience, and also in a way which provides increasing positive commercial, financial results for our businesses as well. And to do that, there's the opportunity for HR to maintain this sense of leadership in an organization and to rise to the challenge and to move from a sort of reactive supporting role into one which is truly leading the business. And this is how I try to articulate that opportunity. And again, this is a representation of HR's role that I've talked about for a long, long time, but I think it's never been as true or as a significant an opportunity as it is now. So this is what HR does. This is HR's value chain. This is the role that we play within our businesses. And in fact, the steps in the value chain, which are shown in orange, those are the ones which we undertake ourselves. And then the impact of our part in the value chain is all of the business benefits that our colleagues in the rest of the business help achieve for the business. So we want to focus on those. The whole purpose of having HR is to achieve those business benefits, but the steps in the value chain that we actually play in ourselves are the orange ones up front. So what we actually do is we use inputs, things like budgets, time of business managers, capabilities of HR team, wonderful HR technologies like Zoho People, in order to undertake activities, all of the things that we do, our HR processes, our organization design, organization development interventions, all of those things. And we undertake all of those in order to create better outcomes or capabilities in our people and organization. And it's those capabilities, those outcomes, which are our deliverables, which we hand over to the rest of the business. And we don't spend enough, we don't focus enough on the outcomes. It's a very simple first step to become more strategic, to spend more time focusing on the outcomes rather than simply all of the activities. It's very natural that we focus on the activities because that's what we do. But when we talk about our role in organizations, it's really worthwhile, to focus on the outcomes. So look, much better, we're running, 10 fantastic training courses for our sales team over the next year. And we get really excited about it and we're really passionate about it. And that's wonderful. But if we can communicate that by focusing on the 5% increase in the capability of our sales team that we're going to achieve by running those 10 sales training courses, it's a much more strategic, credible way to refer to what we're doing. So we should, really focus on these outcomes. So firstly, this is how we move from being a reactive support function to a more strategic one. And secondly, this is how we maintain and capture and leverage that people first mentality that Josh Bersin was referring to in that article on the previous slide. It's not just in a crisis that we need to put people first. It's everything that we do, and particularly in our strategic role. And I think this is one area that HR professionals, potentially some of you as well, get wrong. There is so much focus in HR on getting close to the business, on aligning with the business, on supporting the business, on being an HR business partner that understands the business and talks the language of business, all of these sort of things. And I'm not arguing against any of that. Clearly, that is all essential and fundamental. But it only takes us so far. To me, the real opportunity in HR is to focus on our people in the context of our business. So it's not about forgetting about the business. We need to build on all of the steps, the capabilities that we've built over the last couple of decades. And the differentiated advantage that HR can provide compared to the rest of our business colleagues isn't to be more like everybody else in the business, because everybody else in the business is already like that. Our unique differentiation is understanding people. And people are really complicated or complex and difficult to understand. The key questions that are at the center of business success, before COVID, in COVID, post COVID, are all people-oriented questions. How do we really create an environment that people can learn effectively and change their performance? How do we provide an environment that will lend itself to people to feel more motivated? How do we develop a greater propensity to collaborate across the organization? These are big, difficult, complex questions that are in our area to help answer. So I talk about adding value and creating value. Adding value is about focusing on the business and aligning everything that we do with the business. And that's what I think most HR people see as being strategic. And it's hugely important. But to me, it is still about being a support function, because I probably used the words, adding value is about aligning with supporting the business. The business wants to do this, and therefore we run around and recruiting people and developing people in order to be able to support those goals to be achieved. But that, to me, that's not being truly strategic. It's just supporting the rest of the business to hopefully be strategic. If we want to be truly strategic, we have to create new opportunities for the business through what we do with people. We have to create people-based business strategy. We have to look at ways that we can enhance the qualities of our people and organization that would enable the business to be even more successful. That's creating value. And that's, to me, the core opportunity at the moment. To move from being reactive to being strategic, to maintain our focus on people first, and to provide the basis to work through and beyond the pandemic, because of what we're able, these opportunities, the potential, the capability that we're able to realize in our people. That, to me, is the key opportunity that I think all HR people should be focusing on all the time, but particularly at the moment. One of there's a, sorry, I skipped over onto the slide a little bit too quickly. Thinking about the value chain, and particularly the opportunity for creating value, helps us become more strategic. It helps us innovate what we do in HR, and we do need to innovate. And again, never has that need been greater than at this time when everything is being disrupted. Because I think sometimes there's a belief that we innovate HR by sort of artificially disrupting HR. Let's get rid of ratings because everyone in performance management, because everyone else is doing that. And that may be a good way forward, but actually the best innovation comes through this type of organic alignment that I've been talking about, aligning our inputs, our activities, our outcomes with business needs, adding and creating value to the business. And as part of that, thinking very much about how in our organization we can develop a best fit positioning with the business. We're doing the HR things, the activities that our business needs, not just copying what other organizations do. There's far too much practice in HR on best practices, and actually for a long time those best practices haven't been that good, and given the amount of disruption that's taken place this year, anything that was a best practice 12 months ago is very unlikely actually to be best fit for your own needs now. I don't want to spend too long on this slide, but this is from the University of Southern California. And it's the best piece of evidence I've seen to support the need for HR to focus on best fit rather than best practice. So this just looks at a number of different opportunities for creating business strategies. Those are the columns with the headings along the top. Along the side here is a number of different HR activities, and then the cells in this matrix are correlations, success, how successful performing these approaches are, these processes, compared to the different strategies that a business might be following. And clearly, there's a lot of difference here. There is no sort of particular practice that we should follow, which is always the best practice. It depends. It's best fit. The approach that you need to follow or to invest in and focus on depends on the nature of the business strategy or the people outcomes that you're trying to create. So here, for example, employee relations is probably the most interesting of these. That if you're following a strategy based on innovation, for example, if you're following a strategy based upon sustainability, all about community, then a really significant investment in employee relations is a great thing. It's going to help you be successful. But if your business strategy is all about innovation, then actually too much focus on innovation, too much focus on employee relations is going to constrain, people working in a creative, innovative way. So it's about best fit compared to what it is that you need to achieve. So there is, these days we all want to be evidence-based practitioners. Hopefully there is evidence for what I've just been suggesting. So this is the same slide you've seen before, apart from I've tried to explain, or I've added in how I talk about those qualities of our people and organization. So in the third step here, and our outcomes and capabilities that we're trying to create, I personally find it very useful to think about human, organization, and social capital. So human capital is the value of our people. It's not the people themselves. And I know a lot of people don't like the term. It sounds a bit jargonistic. Some people say, oh, you don't want to call our people human capital. It's not very nice. And I completely agree. Don't call your people human capital, because it's not nice and they won't like it. And it's not even what the term means. So human capital isn't your people. It's the value you get from your people that enables the business to be more successful. So you could have a group of people in your organization who are huge providers of human capital for you. But if that same group of people went down the road to a competitor, they have no provision of human capital at all in that second organization if that organization doesn't need the skills that your people have. So it's not the same as your people, it's the value you get from them. And therefore, I find it a really progressive, helpful term, because as soon as you think about human capital as the basis of your organizational success, it helps you think about managing on people in a much better way in order to accumulate and grow and develop human capital as the basis for competitive success. Organization capital is the value of the way you organize your people. Some organizations, don't have particularly amazing people, but they organize them in a really amazing way, which helps the business perform. And then the social capital, which is the value of, the white space between the people in the organization, in a sense. It's the value of the connections, the relationships, the conversations taking place between your people, or the value of the way that people work in groups and networks within your business. And that was what my recent book, The Social Organization, was about. How can we refocus on social capital? Because I think increasingly, for quite some time now, 20 years ago, what mattered, or what we all did in businesses, was working individually against our own individual objectives. But the nature of work has changed. It's about the shift away from knowledge work that I was talking about before. These days I talk about relationship workers rather than knowledge workers. We don't need knowledge work anymore. Artificial intelligence can do that better than us. What we need is relationship workers, people who use relationships to do their work, and the output of their work is better relationships. Which is why, these days, most of us spend so much time in meetings or on the phone or answering emails or on Zoho Meeting, because work is so collaborative. And therefore, what mattered 20 years ago was human capital. What I think matters today is social capital. And And again, just as I've been stressing for all of these other things I've been talking about, that's been accelerated during the pandemic. So just a couple of examples for you. The role of teams, not just functional teams, but particularly cross-functional or horizontal teams. We've been moving towards this, particularly with the shift towards agile, for certainly the last sort of 5 to 10 years. But it's been hugely accelerated during the pandemic. So this was quite an interesting article from McKinsey quite early on, suggesting that organizations, I'm sure some of you did this, setting up autonomous crisis management teams at the top of the organization just to work out what on earth you were going to do, given that you couldn't do everything that you used to. So much more focus on teams today. Therefore, for me, much more focus on social capital too. Communities as well, growing in use within organizations and outside. I haven't got a slide on this, but in the UK, 1 million people volunteered to work to support the National Health Service or local volunteering systems. If we could tap some of that intrinsic motivation within inside our organizations by bringing people together into communities, things that they're passionate about, that's a huge opportunity for organizational effectiveness. And again, this slide, the opportunity or the experience during the pandemic of using networks, of bringing people together into a more distributed way, rather than the sort of centralized approach that we've tended to use in most organizations, but just allowing people to, work out who they need to cooperate with and work in a much more self-managed, autonomous way to work out what the most useful way of contributing to the organization is. This is my best example of that during the pandemic. In the UK, early on, it looked like we were going to run out of ventilators. We didn't in the end, but it was a really urgent requirement back in sort of April time. And a couple of firms that were already producing ventilators sort of tried to step up production, but there was also this group, the Ventilator Challenge, that formed an ecosystem really of individuals and other organizations coming together to bring the best minds and best thinking and network with each other and share openly and try to work in a cooperative manner to identify the best solution to that requirement. And as I said, it didn't, the need fortunately wasn't required, but it did look like this networked organization was in the lead to step up and succeed in designing and manufacturing. And that's the power of networks. Teams, communities, networks have become much more important for years and years, but we can really see them how they've come to the fore during the pandemic. So that's my suggestion, that out of those things, out of those outcomes that I've been looking at, I think social capital is the most important. And it might just be worth checking that with you. So I do have another poll for you, and hopefully I think this one will work because it is simpler, because I'm only asking you to select one thing this time. Which of these is the most important in organizations? Now, I've already told you what my answer is. Try not, please don't just give me the answer that you think I want. I'm sure you wouldn't do that anyway. Because, even for me, I do think that social capital is the most important of these, but but all organizations are different. That's the key point I'm trying to, it's one of the key points I'm trying to make during this session. Best fit rather than best practice. It depends. There are organizations around where human capital is the most important, organization capital is the most important. I'm not trying to say social capital is the answer for all organizations, just perhaps most organizations. So there's no wrong answer. So thank you for responding to that. And well, no surprise to me, at least, that most of you, over half of you, suggest that yes, social capital. You can see that social capital, the value of the way that people work together against shared objectives, is the key differentiator, the key need in your organization. So thank you for that. So even if that's not the case for all of you, and hopefully I would anticipate that even those of you who suggested that that organization and human capital are the most important outcomes in your organization, you can still see social capital becoming more important as well. And look, in most organizations, you do need all three. It's just that I think it helps us be more strategic. Be a core part of being more strategic is about prioritizing on what's most important. So if we can identify which of those outcomes is most important, it's another core way of helping our strategic role inside organizations. So just very quickly, my challenge to you then is, if you do agree that over the last couple of decades, the role of social capital compared to human capital has become more important, and you also agree with the need for best fit rather than best practice, that must mean that we're now attempting to align all of our people and organization management activities with social capital rather than human capital. So I'm presuming that the 65% of you who responded to say that social capital is now the most important outcome in your organization, none of you still manage, measure, develop, reward the performance of individuals, because that would be stupid, wouldn't it? When what mattered was human capital, clearly we need to focus on individuals. But now what matters is social capital. Clearly we need to manage, measure, develop, reward the performance of teams and networks. So that's what you're all doing, right? Apart from you're not. Or you might be, I don't know. And some organizations do. An increasing number of organizations do. This isn't my only suggestion in this session, clearly. But it's a big part of how I think organizations need to be more strategic, can be more strategic, and can also navigate through and beyond the pandemic. Now more than ever, social capital is what many organizations need, and therefore, if you want to innovate and improve what you do in HR, a really straightforward, simple way, high impact way of doing that is to rethink your whole HR architecture. From the premise, if what we need is social capital, how does that influence everything else that we do? I am slightly running out of time. Just very quickly, my suggestion for how you be more strategic, how you become more effective in adding and particularly creating value, is firstly, be really clear about the outcomes that you need to provide that will add and create value to your business. And then, as we've just been talking about, align in a best fit way your HR and organization activities with those outcomes you need to create. It's also quite useful to define a set of principles that express what you believe about the way that HR works, how you want your organization to work. And in a sense, those two things act as a what and a how. So the outcomes that you want to create in your value chain is what you need HR and the organization to achieve. The principles are how the organization needs to work in achieving those outcomes. So it's a bit like in performance management. Your managers and employees at the beginning of the year, set a number of objectives, but they also talk about people's competencies or behaviors or values. So there's sort of a what and a how of performance. Same thing for the organization. The outcomes are the what, these organization principles, how you want your organization to work, are the how. If you want to be strategic, it's really, really useful, if not essential, to have clear outcomes you're trying to create and clear principles that describe how you want the value chain to work. And And well, in a very similar way, I suppose that people are becoming more important. The role of these outcomes in the value chain is becoming more important, and hence the opportunity to create value. Our organization principles are becoming more people-shaped as well. And in particular, this is Gary Hamel's new book, Humanocracy, where he talks about the shift from bureaucracy to humanocracy, these very human and social principles. Really interesting to see community as a new principle for the way that we do HR. I just think we spend lots of time arguing in our businesses trying to make HR more humanistic in terms of the activities we do. Should we have ratings in performance management? And we have the same battle time and time again, expressed in slightly different ways. If we can push a more people-centric way forward in terms of the outcomes and principles that we want to create, then everything else is simple. The rest just follows. Of course we're going to shift performance management or reward because we've changed the outcomes and the principles, and therefore everything else changes as well. So I've got 2 or 3 more minutes, and I just want to talk through a couple of examples with you, just to sort of, I've been talking about, well, I suppose it has been fairly conceptual, fairly theoretical. I think that's the way, or is part of the way, that we become more strategic as well. If we want, business strategy is about understanding concepts and having insights about the way that things work, and particularly insights other people haven't got. So I do think exploring theories and models and frameworks and things is sort of part of this shift, moving from being a sort of transactional HR function to a more strategic one. But yes, it's always, you need a sort of practical takeaway as well. So just a couple of examples. And obviously, all I can do now, because I don't know your organizations, is talk about best practices, the new best practice, the continuation of this direction of travel, this journey that HR in general has been moving on. So please don't copy these ideas. You still need to think about what's best fit for your own business, but these may sort of whet your appetite or help describe more practically what I've been talking about. So this is just the sort of diagrammatic representation of what I've just been describing. Couple of examples. Performance management. I talked about this before. If what matters is social capital, why do we manage and measure and develop and reward the performance of individuals? Surely we should do that for teams. It is happening. More organizations are looking at teams and performance management of teams. I don't think enough. The point of performance in most organizations for years and years actually has been the team. If we want to improve performance, we have to intervene in the team to get that performance improvement. This is, I was saying before, I was a HR director at Ernst & Young, EY, for 4 years. This is what we did there. This is 20 years ago. And this was before we had any, compelling, intuitive technology like Zoho People to use to make it all easy. So we did this on paper. We stuck out, we put up flip charts around the project team room, and we gave people post-it notes, and we asked them to do strengths and weaknesses for each of the other people. Well, for the team first. So we had a number of team competencies, and we asked the individuals in the team to do post-it notes, put the post-it notes up on the flip chart, have a look through the post-it notes, try and work out what people were saying, in order to do a performance assessment for the team. That was brilliant. And then we did the same thing for individuals, which is a little bit more scary, but was brilliant as well. And now you can use the functionality of Zoho People to do 360-degree reviews and multi-rater feedback and continuous reviews. All of these things is sort of getting much easier to do. The key is to use the technology to do what you want to do strategically. So the first thing is working out what that needs to be, and again, well, actually, let me show you the next slide, and then I'll make that point. Rather than sort of take you through some examples about team-based reward, in case you're interested, and again, because we want to be evidence-based practitioners, here's some really interesting. This was a meta-analysis of reward practices at team level and individual team level. I think a lot of organizations turn away from focusing reward on teams because it is more difficult, it is more challenging. You need to think more smartly about how you're going to do it. There are more downsides. You can encourage the wrong behavior by doing team-based reward or team performance management or team anything else in the wrong way. Anything at team level is more complex, and therefore there are more risks involved. So when you reward, for example, the big risk is, well, if you only reward at team level, you're likely to set up or to increase the level of social loafing, where everyone thinks, the team, it's all right. Everyone else in the team will perform. I don't need to worry too much. And of course, as soon as everybody in the team thinks that, then you've got problems, clearly. But actually, this meta-analysis suggested that team performance, team reward works. In fact, it probably works better than individual reward. Probably because teams are more important than individuals. So of course you should reward teams. Right, that was it really. Sorry, I'm really keen to take your questions and to have a bit of a chat to you. So let me stop there. I'll just move on to the final slide. So you've got if you want. If we run out of time on questions, and I suspect we will, please get in touch, connect on LinkedIn, have a look at the academy that I've been moving to because of COVID. I can't do face-to-face training anymore. So all of my training is being moved into my new digital academy. So loads of places you can find me. Would love to talk more. But quick summary. People first, therefore creating value in order to be strategic, potentially focus on social capital, best fit alignment with what you need to achieve, and be brave, be creative. HR needs to step up, and my hope is that I've shared a couple of ideas in this session that may help you do that. And we need to find out a little bit more about Zoho People too.
Yes, thank you, John. So before we move on to questions, let me quickly highlight some handpicked features of Zoho People that will actually help you implement the things that we've discussed right now. The things that John had discussed, very novel and really practical, I would say. So let's see how we can actually execute the things that we've just discussed. So I'm sharing my screen. Okay, I hope you can all see my screen. So I'm sure you're all aware of Zoho Corporation. We provide software as a service. And with respect to human resources, we have Zoho People. It's an online cloud-based HR management software, and it's highly employee-centric. So every journey of your employee's life cycle, right from hiring to retiring and everything in between, Zoho People can help you take care of it. And for a more wholesome experience, we also have Zoho People Plus. So this is an integrated platform with a combination of 6 applications focusing on HR management, expense management, connectivity and collaboration, and more. So all of this aiming to provide the best employee experiences. So like we had just discussed, putting people first. So let's see some features that our customers are using right now. They've been using these features to thrive in this COVID crisis. And I must admit, they've been successful. So I'm just highlighting some handpicked features for you all. So starting with this quick health survey, a COVID health check. So this will help you listen to your employees. So maybe if they're not productive, or maybe if you would like to support them during tough times like this, a simple survey like this will help you listen to them. So even for sickness in among their family members, you can support them, make necessary changes to their leave policies, their sick leave policies, and assign their projects to another employee and so on. So planning your strategies, rethinking your positions, it starts with simple health checks like this. So do try this out and let us know what you feel about it. And as he as we are looking to reiterate things, rethink our strategies, and HR professionals currently they are held up with their current activities, processing things, and it's all new for all of us. So how do we actually execute things effortlessly? So take a look at this example here. So imagine I'm an organization looking to reopen my offices, and my company is dispersed, my workforce is dispersed, distributed in their respective homes. So how do we actually bring them all together, make an informed decision, and reopen an offices? Yes, with workflows, it is possible. So as you see here, I can easily distribute work items to different teams, to the administration team, to the hygiene, and the other teams that play key roles in here. And not just that, I can automatically update information into the system, and I can even roll out surveys, reminders, mail alerts to employees, asking them about this decision. So instead of taking a decision to reopen offices, I can involve employees and take a collective decision. And with Zoho People, be it a mundane task or maybe a new thing that you're experimenting, you can execute it effortlessly with workflows like this. This page sums up the way I am working remotely right now. So Zoho is basically running on Zoho. We are working with our own tools, and this is what I do. This is what I use on a daily basis. So this lets me be connected with my team of 150 members. So I can easily see who is available at work, who is engaged at the moment, who is out on a quick break, a lunch break, and so on. And it comes with audio and video calling options as well. So be it an important decision, or maybe a birthday wish, or an anniversary wish, or maybe just inquiring about somebody's health status, you can get together using one single dashboard like this. So what we call as Zoho Click in here, available as part of Zoho People. So it again comes with screen sharing options. It gives you your own personal bots, personal assistants, and more. So do explore our collaboration tools, and I'm sure they would definitely bring your employees together. And apart from giving your employees the comfortable tools to work, down the lane it comes to performance as well, and particularly during times like this when we haven't seen our employees in person for a while, we rely on online tools like this. So we facilitate multi-rater feedbacks. We have 360-degree feedbacks, breaking the conventional methods like John had observed. And not just that, so at the end of every appraisal, if an employee is not satisfied with the reviews and feedbacks they've got, they can always choose to extend it. So you can step in, managers can step in, listen to their feedbacks, and extend if it's a valid reason. So involving employees, including them in evaluations, is this simple. And this is my favorite feature, self appraisals. So instead of keeping performance appraisals as a third party evaluation method, you can involve your employees. You can ask them what they felt about their performance, what are the areas in which they are lacking. And I'm sure the employees themselves, they'll be the best people to tell us, where they are standing, what needs improvement, and more. And this again contributes to self realization as well. And talking about performance, we have to cover learning. So we see that our employees are lagging, or we see that they've got a long way to go. We can devise learning and development plans from there. So to facilitate online learning, in fact, many of our customers, they've moved to online learning with our new learning management system. So this is a very comfortable tool for your employees to use, and it's not just a random learning experience. It neatly charts out a plan. Any learning experience can result in a designation change or a role change, a promotion and more. So it gives you concrete outcomes. And many employees love self-paced courses because it's totally up to their efforts to complete the course. So we facilitate both self-paced and instructor-led courses. And to measure the usefulness of any course, you should collect feedback. So yes, we have course feedback. And to ensure that the entire learning experience is interactive, we've got online discussions, thought-provoking brainstorming sessions, all within the LMS itself. And our LMS is in sync with our performance management system. So any skill set information that you store in the performance management system will be in sync. So after the learning experience, once the course is completed, it can result in a promotion, maybe a salary hike or a designation change and more. And you can even suggest courses to bridge skill set gaps of your employees. So this is a great way to grow together as a team. And your employees, they'll feel happy. In fact, they'll stay longer in your organizations when they know that you are investing in their growth. And particularly during highly uncertain times like this, we have to be adaptable. So a learning management system like this is super vital. And I'm sure many of you would get questions from your employees. So as HR professionals, because we're not in the same floor anymore, we're not, in the adjacent building anymore. We're all dispersed. We're all in our respective homes. To track all questions, we have, cases, an online question management tool. You'll simply need to create a category like this. So any category, maybe work from home or even reopening offices, and all your employees' questions can be raised on the particular category. You can have an individual agent who will be responsible to answer employees' questions as well. And to leverage the power of AI, we've got Zia. So this is Zoho's very own bot assistant. So to do away with biometric way of tracking attendance, you can enable web check-ins. You can simply summon Zia and ask Zia to mark your day's attendance for you, maybe give your pending task list or connect with another employee, or even apply for leave if you're sick or if you're on the move. And finally, while you're looking to re-engineer or uh, press the pass button and rethink your strategies, we do not want to take random decisions, but we want to be able to take informed decisions. So the power of analytics for the same. So maybe if you're looking at, your performance of your employees, your productivity rates, a simple report like this telling you about your projects, your time logged hours, while working from home. Or maybe if you're looking to put a pass to your hiring, or if you are trying to hire again, maybe a report or giving you information on your hiring trends and your attrition trends. Or if you have any custom unique need, you'll be able to build your very own report based on your requirements using analytics here. And the this pandemic panic is slowly lifting, and businesses around the globe, I'm sure even in your country, so they are looking to reopen their offices. So to ensure a smooth resuming of work, we've launched a new service called Office Readiness. So this will help you check on your employees' health, check on your workplace, your premises, your building, its capacity, and more. So, an online tool to help you get back to your work safely. And not just this, you'll be able to build any custom service for any requirement of yours, because we understand that you'll have unique needs. So instead of you compromising and using the features that we give you, we let you build your own custom applications, your custom tools. So maybe a rewards and recognition thing, a much required service during times like this, or maybe visitor management, employee management, and more. You can explore the many possibilities using our custom services. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. So thank you one more time. And now we'll stop for questions. So we'll be available for the next 10 minutes to take in your questions. Please use the question space that you see on your left side menu. to send us over your questions. So John and I will be here online to answer your questions. Thank you.